to our board meeting for the Oakville Library on Thursday, December 8th at 7 p.m. I'm sorry that I was making the vice chair sweat a little bit that I wouldn't be here. Members of the board, are there any, Madam Committee Clerk, are there any regrets this evening?
We have regrets from Pankaj, and Sue is still on a leave of absence.
Right, and Ray Chisholm, I believe, as well.
Oh, yes, and Councillor Chisholm.
Yeah. Members of the board, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare this evening? I don't see any. And we do have, Savannah's online, right? Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting of the board that was held on October 27th. Oh, it seems so long ago. And we have both regular minutes, public minutes, as well as confidential. Can I get a motion to approve those, please? Anybody? Thank you. Seconded? Thank you. All in favor? So I guess I should call for errors or omissions first. Anybody have any comments, questions, errors, or omissions on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. We do have 4 items on our consent agenda this evening. Does anybody wish to separate any of those? I'm not seeing any desire to separate 4.1, which is the OPL board key agenda items, 4.2, which is our health and safety report, 4.3, which is occupational health, safety, workplace violence policy report, and 4.4 being the performance and measures report for Q3 2022. Can I get a motion to approve those, please? Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Bill. All in favor? That's carried. So let's move right on to our consent items. We have 4.1, which is the Oakville Public Library keyboard agenda. Sorry, I'm reading the same thing we just passed. We have no confidential consent items, and we move on to item 6, which is the election of the board chair and vice chair. I thought I had a few more minutes. Members of the board, what's your pleasure on this? I'm totally at your leisure on this particular item. I'm happy to serve. If somebody else would like to serve, I'd be happy to relinquish the chair. So I know Stephen's not returning, so I guess being vice chair wouldn't make sense.
I'm happy to serve for tonight if that's helpful to the meeting. But yes, this would be my
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on this?
On the chair?
No, I don't want a judgment on whether we deal with this tonight or in the in the new year.
But we're talking about the chair position at this point.
What we're doing?
Thank you.
Hi. So through you, Mr. Chair, how this would work is you can either appoint a chair and a vice chair from your current members that are present and available to even accept a nomination tonight. So nominating a board member that isn't even present tonight isn't an option because they do have to accept the nomination. So you'd be picking from basically the people in here as well as Savannah. So that would omit Sue, Pankaj, and Councillor Chisholm from even being an option because they're not here to accept a nomination. So we just thought it's the board's will, but an alternative to appointing from who's here tonight, because you're all appointed until a successor replaces you, so it's your term date or until a successor replaces you, you can defer this option until we have dealt with the citizen appointments for a new board and you have your whole new next 4 years of people in place and then pick from that.
Right. Thank you. Long explanation, but
Hopefully that makes sense.
It was helpful. So I'm again, it's an agenda item, so we have to look at the alternative motion if you want to go that way. I'm happy to serve as chair again if that's what you want me to do. I'm just kind of anxious to know what my year looks like or what my schedule looks like. So doing it now would be better than February personally, but I don't want to make this about me. I think we can probably split it. The worst that would happen is that Jessica would get in trouble for allowing us to do it from Kathy.
You can split it.
Okay.
We just have to word the motion accordingly.
Sure. So somebody want to make a suggestion? Steve?
I'd be totally in favor of splitting it.
Okay.
In that sense, and I would support you as being chair.
Okay.
Splitting, I think, makes sense from a governance perspective, if allowable, and I think we're hearing guidance that splitting is allowable.
Okay.
That would be my personal opinion, but that's just me.
That's fine.
I agree with you.
Okay, so let's get a motion to split the positions first. So Steve and Bill, we're moving that we're going to split we're going to elect the chair tonight and the vice chair at the, do we specify a date?
It would just be deferred until council makes the new appointments with citizen
Okay.
appointments. We don't have a specific date,
Okay.
but once the new appointments are made. then
So I
you could do
think
that.
then the easiest way to do this is that the motion would read that 6.1 sub 2 is deferred until after council has made its citizen appointments. Is that okay, Steve and Bill? Is that the motion you intended?
I'm sorry, what?
So I suggested making the motion easier, and that is to defer 6.1 sub 2 until after council has made its citizen appointments.
Yes.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yes.
Okay,
So just a quick clarification.
Yeah.
Does that mean I stay on as chair,
Yeah.
vice chair rather?
yeah, it's until,
It's contingent
oh,
on that?
no, I think your term expires at the end of the year, right?
It does, everybody actually expired in November or until a successor is appointed. So
Okay,
you're
so-
all here, but you could also put in your motion that Stephen Bright remain vice chair until the new appointments are made and a successor is appointed.
That's what I heard Stephen say.
Yeah, and I'm happy to serve as long as that's, and I know you don't know this answer, as long as it's not deep into the year, because I have to kind of figure out my own schedule as well.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna leave a gap, of course, I'll
Yeah.
stay here until someone's there, but with the hope that it's not too far off.
The current schedule for us is that the council would appoint in January.
At the January 30th meeting for basically the board to be in effect by February.
Perfect. Would that work for you?
That's great, that's
Okay.
great, well, thank you. yeah.
Because as we discovered tonight, the vice presidency is, or the vice chairmanship is really important.
I have sat in that chair before.
I know you have. Okay, so we're revising the motion again, so it's deferring the appointment of the vice chair until after a point in time when council approves the citizen appointments, and that Stephen Bright remain as vice chair until
A successor is appointed?
until a successor is appointed, elected,
Elected,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Is that what you meant, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. You too, Stephen?
Just a point, it says appointed in this, in the minutes, but I believe it would be elected, no?
Council appoints, the board elects.
No, I know what what he's saying is the vice chair is elected by the board, not appointed by the board.
Yes.
It's coming from
Okay.
an English expert, he just wants to be precise.
Yeah.
So then it would be until council appoints its citizen,
Until council makes citizens appointments.
okay. Okay, let's just go with this. We don't have to worry about acclamations. So the motion's on the floor, all in favor of that motion? Okay, and that is carried, thank you, Savannah. So the next issue is, it seems kind of weird that I'm conducting the election for the chairmanship.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So at this time, we're going to elect a chair for the 2022 to 2026 term. I would call for nominations for a chair. Okay, we have a nomination from Andrew Cashman for Councillor Knoll to serve as chair for the next 4 years. Councillor Knoll, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Are there any further nominations? Okay, I'm going to call the vote that Councillor Knoll be appointed Chair of the Oakville Public Library Board from the term 2022 to 2026. All in favor? And there we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't even give a campaign speech.
You didn't even speak, Fred.
I know. Exactly.
They didn't even need any white smoke or anything.
That's right. Yeah. There's an obscure reference. That's good. Good. I like that one, though. Yeah, we're in conclave.
I'm looking for it.
6.2, comprehensive financial report as at September 30th, 2022. I would assume that's why Nancy Sully's on the line. Who's presenting?
Pardon?
Who's presenting this item?
I am.
Okay. Oh, this is a report. This isn't the budget yet.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah. So every quarter, at the end of each quarter, we bring the board where we stand for the year. So this is the end of Q3, September 30th. Just highlighting that we are projecting an operating surplus of just under $300,000. The development reserve is projecting a year-end balance of just over $200,000, and the HIP trust is projecting a year-end balance of $130,000. Everything is on track, and we feel solid about where we are in the year.
Members of the board, do you have any questions? How are other libraries doing? How are other libraries doing? Are we like, way above the pack again? How are the finances of other libraries? Are we just like,
In terms of the surplus, or?
no, just in terms of their like finances in general? Have you heard much through the association?
We don't really talk about it overly.
Yeah, I guess it's rude to talk about money and religion, right?
Right. I mean, overarching then, you know, we talk about themes that we see. For example, as we talked about at previous board meetings, HR issues continue to be an issue across the board, which do then result in gapping issues and gapping surpluses, which is one of the key drivers of ours. That is very not unique to Oakville Public Library. Everybody is suffering from challenges around recruiting. That's really one of the only themes that we've ultimately talked about as a group.
I'm just curious, 'cause I've been hearing lots of anecdotal information about municipalities and what their financial circumstances are post-COVID. I know that Oakville is doing quite well. I was just curious, as the library obviously is as well,
Yeah.
so just curious if you had any other anecdotal information. This is one more thing we can gloat about as being
Yeah.
a great library system.
Yeah. I mean, normally this time of year, I would have a sense of what the requested increases were for the libraries in the GTA, but just due to the municipality and where people are scheduling, this is always an awkward year for us.
Yeah.
So I don't have that information the way I would normally do.
Okay, members of the board, you've heard the report. I've offered you the opportunity to ask any questions. Is there anybody willing to make the motion to receive the report, which is the comprehensive financial report as at September 30th? Thank you, Andrew. Seconded by Stephen. Thank you very much. All in favor? I don't see any objections, so I'm going to assume that that's carried. Okay, we're moving on to 6.3, which is the OPL capital budget dated December 8th, 2022. So this is for the 2023 budget year. Who's leading us through this?
I am.
Okay.
So just to remind the board, the capital budget for 2023 came forward in October for feedback. There was no feedback, so you are getting the budget as seen, no changes as was reviewed in October, but this time it is coming for approval and to be submitted to town council for consideration as part of the budget process.
Members of the board, you've had an opportunity to review this. It's been presented in brief before. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Andrew?
I have a question regarding the downtown cultural hub.
Go for it.
So it's mentioned that council has directed town staff to proceed with capital planning, but there are no dollars allocated for that planning process. Is that being covered entirely by town staff?
Correct. The library portion of the downtown cultural hub review is actually being handled at the town at this point as part of their envelope.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, as we get details, they'll come to the board.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? I'm so used to seeing Janet's hand. I'm missing Janet popping up her hand on a regular. Did you have any questions, Janet, by any chance? You're good? Okay. I just feel obligated.
Nancy has raised her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Commissioner Sully.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Noel. I'm here on behalf of Colleen, but I did want to just mention, I mean, Tara's presented the budget. It is going to council in January. Just wanted to let the board know, while there is a long-term forecast there, as we told council last night, with Bill 23, we will be coming back to council with some of the impacts on that. So I just wanted to make you aware that we will be looking at our capital in the new year. I think it'll be the spring before we really know the impacts, but just so that you're aware that there could be amendments based on Bill 23.
Yes, that's very true. This is going to be a very unusual and challenging year in the world of the municipalities. I'll ask again, is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve for submission to the town our capital budget for 2023? Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Stephen. Thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is the operating budget. Tara, do you have any comments on that?
Just similar to the capital, what you see in front of you is exactly what was proposed in October. We did reframe it a little bit to remind the board that we are requesting a 5.2% increase, which is the combination of the request for the core budget, plus the additional 2 FTEs as a result of the business case around the move from ITS support of OPL-specific technologies to OPL, which is spoken more to in the SLA report further down.
Okay. Comments, questions? Bill?
I was just wondering, going through this, the 3.8%, I was just wondering, the personnel costs, are they sort of, for purposes of this, are they set at like full complement of personnel? And it, like, I'm just wondering if, because it seems to have so much impact, obviously, on you know, how things play out during the year, but if we did have a full complement, would that throw this off, or is it based on that?
No, it is based on a full complement, and then if we don't have a full complement, that's what we call that gapping, so that's what's actually driving the surplus this year, is when we don't have a complement, we budget to be fully staffed. But as people change positions, and as we tried to highlight, the challenge that we've had this year, which is a bit of a good news story, is that, you know, we've had a couple manager positions, supervisor positions, and higher level positions vacate, which then cause staff to move up, which then causes the cascade. So then it's vacancy after vacancy as people kind of shift and it takes us, you know, 6 months to a year to kind of like finish that cascade.
Right.
Which then results in surplus. We have, the board will remember, was it last year maybe? Or the year before, we have started to budget for some of our gapping, which I think we'll revisit going into 2024, now that we've stabilized a bit through the pandemic, in order to balance out some of our budget moving forward.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill. Further comments, questions? Andrew?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why there's such a large increase to internal transfers to facilities.
So at the beginning of the year, we moved our facility staff fully into the town. So now the town fully supports all of our buildings. So this is actually the facility staff that we had are moving over to the town to support our facilities, but just from the town side.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah, so we did that this year as a soft, but next year, we're actually doing the full transfer, so it'll no longer be included in our budget, it'll be in the town's.
Thanks, Andrew. Further comments, questions? So I have one. With respect to room bookings, I see and I understand that it's been a slow uptake of room rentals in 2022. Gatherings have just been slow in general, everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, with virtual options now, there are fewer people that require rooms. Have we thought about increasing our marketing around that? So if you're losing regular customers, you want to replace them. So I'm wondering if we're doing anything to draw attention to the excellent facilities that we have available to organizations and such, because we are a bargain.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that is a conversation that we're having. We were just waiting for the library space policy to be approved, and then we'll have that in place, and we'll have conversations about what spaces are available for rental, and how we can get those out a bit more.
And that item is on tonight's agenda, so that's perfect timing. Okay. Anything else? I am not seeing anything in person or virtually, so on 6.4, the motion is once again to approve for submission to council of the operating budget. Can I get a motion for that, please? Bill and Andrew, thank you very much. Last chance for comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving into our non-financial items now. 6.5 is diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic framework dated December 8th, 2022. Tara, do you?
Yeah, so I'm excited to bring this in front of the board. It was my hope to bring it earlier in the year. It does tie to my CEO goals that the board approved in the earlier part of the year to bring this to the board. It is a strategic framework built in part from our strategic plan, as well as the diversity and inclusion survey that we did in partnership with the town earlier in the year. I also held a town hall dedicated to diversity and inclusion with the staff. And I also, Marcus and I both sit on the town's diversity and inclusion I forget what the committee is called, but we're basically participating in the town's multi-year DEI plan. So what this is a starting point for us in 2023 to kind of build the foundation of what I think we need, based on all the information that's gathered, to start becoming a more DEI-focused organization. It allows us to kind of connect into the town where they're building their multi-year plan. It's not final yet, but as I said, I'm part of that committee, so I'm able to do those alignments. As part of that. So there are three main focuses for 2023, and I did want to focus that this is just for 2023. Once we have these in place, I think it'll create a plan moving forward for us. I also wanted that this is really a core piece, but as we bring forward the employee resource group or the town finishes their multi-year plan, those items could be incorporated into this plan as it moves forward. So as I said, the three key goals for 2023 are workforce diversity, workplace inclusion, and sustainability and accountability. So I'm bringing this to the board for feedback and thoughts.
Members of the board, do you have any feedback, comments, or questions for our team? Andrew?
Thank you for presenting this, Sarah. I have a question regarding the workforce diversity goal. Under measuring success, we have feedback from candidates on hiring process. Obviously, that pool is restricted to people who actually bother to apply. And I'm wondering if there's any additional external feedback that can be obtained to view the entire process from start to end. Because if we're missing people in the candidate pool, we're never going to get that feedback from them.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, Trish and I have a conversation with. We've started to connect more into the community, HMC Connections being one, for example, in order to post with them. And so they've been able to provide us with feedback on our postings and what that process is like and how we can make improvements. So we can continue to look at organizations like that can provide us with hints about why people may not even want to apply at the library, because there may be external views that we need to be aware of and how to adapt.
Okay, appreciate that, thanks.
Further comment or feedback? Bill?
Well, I don't really have any comments. I just thought, or it's more feedback. I thought it was done very well done. I mean, it's easy to understand, and I think it's a great idea. But I don't, in terms of comments, I mean, outside of the fact that I thought it was well done, I think that's what I wanted to say. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anything further? Okay, I'm sorry, were you going to, no? Okay. I have a question. So, I mean, right now, the challenge with almost every employer is recruitment in general. You did mention that one source that you would attempt to promote these positions to diverse communities would be HMC. Can you expand on that at all and maybe talk about other areas that you would use or other avenues you would use to attempt to recruit from those communities? Because I do think that what you're saying is probably your one comment about that some may see the Oakville Public Library as not being a diversity-friendly environment. I don't think that's true, but perception often becomes reality in people's minds. So have you thought through the actual execution of this in terms of recruitment? Because right now it's tough in general.
Yeah.
How do you specifically get to these groups?
I think it's multi-pronged, to be completely honest. So it also really depends on the positions. Some of our positions have educational requirements that require them to have a library technician's diploma or have a master's in library science, in which case, from that point, we're trying to work more with the schools to kind of attract those people into that. We also actively encourage staff to look at potentially education that might allow them access into different positions, particularly internally. We do see great success in diverse candidates related to our library assistant positions, but it's then how do we then build them and enable them to move up through the organization. So HMC has been really helpful in providing us feedback like that. Libraries are traditionally white and female. And that everybody has that image of a librarian in their head, and that chances are that's what it is. So part of it is a bit of a chicken and an egg situation, is we're trying to bring diverse people in. That way it kind of triggers people into it. We've been having conversations about how do we get in, talk with some of our younger staff or our student volunteers to kind of encourage them to go into library schools to that. But it is a struggle, and I think it's not just us. It's actually similar conversations that we've been having with the town. The town has also been struggling. Normally, government is an employer of choice, but that's not the case anymore. And so it's a real struggle, and how do we kind of overcome the perceptions is an ongoing conversation.
Okay. And in terms of, I forgot, not totally lost track of what I was going to ask you. So it was HMC, communities you could recruit into. Oh, you actually touched on it. I was going to talk about basically marketing it within the organization. So you touched on that. That's something you've already got in mind to do. Okay.
Yeah, and also even through our social, making sure that we are highlighting the wide range of diversity we have on our staff, so that when people see Oakville Public Library, they're seeing who our staff really are and not what they may think it is, the perception of that, which, and how to balance that, because our staff should reflect the community they serve.
In terms of educational credentials, I know that in many, if not all, of the professions, there's always this disparity between foreign credentials and Canadian North American credentials. Is there any issue there? So somebody trained in, say, India or Sri Lanka or somewhere else where they would offer a library sciences program, would we treat those degrees if they have them? I'm not even sure if this is something that's universal or not, but if they have degrees internationally, is that something that you would take into consideration?
So that's something we've already done. So previously, our job postings would have said Master's in Library Science from an ALA accredited university, which is an American Library Association. So that's very North American. So we've actually removed that. So you just need an MLIS, and we need to validate it, because really, Masters of Library Science, whether that's in North America, whether that's in Europe, they're equivalent, or whatever the gaps are easily trained. It's very different than maybe a medical or maybe something that's a bit more specific. So that's something we did. I think we did it last year.
Okay. And in terms of not just highlighting other people, but highlighting our collections and such to potentially demonstrate that the library is not just peers, but it's also what we offer. Some of those communities that to whom we are supporting with books. Have you considered using that as a method of reaching out to diverse communities as well?
Yeah,
because having folks from other cultures. When we have customers, I mean, for example, if we have librarians of Chinese origin, and we have a fairly good Chinese book collection, perhaps there's a connection there. There's something that makes people feel more comfortable to join the library team if there's materials there that are from their specific culture.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're talking about. Our collections, there's always room for improvement, but I feel like they're relatively solid when it comes to multicultural. Yeah. Where we're struggling is a bit more is our communication is all in English. So one of the things that we are working on right now is reviewing all our pamphlets and then getting translated into multiple languages. For that, if you come in and you're of Chinese heritage or Hindu heritage, you can come in and we'll hand you a pamphlet that kind of goes over, all about the library, and it's in your native language, which, again, hopefully indicates our welcoming nature. We're also talking about how we can do more when we're hiring to bring people in with diverse languages, and then really embrace those languages, potentially for story time or different programs where we can actually offer them in different languages. So that's exactly where I'm hoping we're going to go over the next year or two.
I was going to ask you about the inventory of languages spoken among staff members. Has that ever been done?
I don't think we've done an inventory of languages. We do know that I could name certain staff that I know have them, where they've come forward and been really willing to use them, but we haven't actually taken an inventory.
Is that something you'd consider doing?
Tricia and I could have a conversation about it, yeah.
Yeah, because it's, I know some organizations, not only will they do the inventory, but sometimes their name badges will actually say, I speak whatever. And it's a very welcoming thing when there's somebody from your own, especially if somebody's struggling and they want to use the library as a resource to help their their English language journey, to know there's a peer would be potentially useful. And then I think also for potential employees, if they know that there's a certain, especially if there's more obscure, some of the lesser populated languages, if somebody know that they were there, that would, they'd have a peer there or somebody that, they could connect with.
Yeah.
Okay, well, appreciate if you take that under advisement, that'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, go back to the board. Does anybody else have any questions? I knew I'd spark something. Meredith?
Just, I guess, as a follow-up to your line of questioning, I was also curious if you know your cardholders and sort of if you have like a top 10 of the native languages spoken by your cardholders, or even like a census statistics of the town of Oakville residents?
Yeah, we don't track language through our internal system, but we do use, like StatsCan, they just came out with the new census. So we're looking at that to really validate whether or not we are on the right path in terms of our multilingual. That was one of the reasons that Ukraine will be added next year, because they've kind of reached that threshold that we have internally for that. So that review is taking place, because that census data was just released a month or so ago. And then we continue to work with our town partners, which are really good. And then we track usage of our multilingual collections. Multilingual is challenging because it's really hard to get. And then we've been working in terms of creating partners with different community groups, because they've been helpful in providing us with lists of books. Because when you have catalogers, we don't necessarily have selectors in-house that can select across 9 different languages. So we really rely on our vendors for that. And the vendors, don't have necessarily the strongest access to it. So it's one of the things we as libraries are continuing to advocate for. And we have actually tapped some of our community partners, Spark Circle and some of the other ones have been really helpful in helping point us in the right direction.
Thanks, Meredith. Any further questions? Actually, that now that I think about it, that actually just something jumped into my head. Have we ever, I don't know if this program exists or if any of us ever thought about it before, but have we ever thought, in terms of that difficult to get cohort of materials, have we ever considered doing like partnering or twinning with libraries in other countries? Because they're probably having the same issue with, English language materials. They may not have the expertise to know what to bring in. And if 2 libraries were to partner, or if there was a clearinghouse group, then perhaps that would be a way to get more materials in the system, plus also maybe cycle more materials through the system so that you're not getting stale materials as well.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting question. I've never heard of that happening, but doesn't mean it's not.
Yeah.
There is the IFLA, which is the International Federation of Library Associations. Anyway, but that's an international group.
Sounds
So
plausible.
I may reach out and just to see, because there may be a program in there that could help facilitate, and we're just not aware of it.
Or maybe Oakville could start one.
We can.
There you go. Stephen.
Well, I was just gonna pick up on that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but Niagara was a partner
Yeah,
city
that's right.
to Oakville.
That's right,
And Oakville, the town may have existing partnerships with, and I'm just not aware of them.
Yeah,
I just know
Niagara, Japan,
Niagara, because I
yeah.
live off Niagara Street. So anyway, that might be, a possibility just to see what they have.
No,
The
absolutely.
existing partners.
We partner with Niagawa internationally, and we partner with Dorval in Ontario. We partner with Dorval in Quebec as an a national partnership. So, okay, that's well done. Thank you for that. And I mean, if you look at the most recent statistics, it just demonstrates how much more important this is now. Because what's the is 42% of Canadians originate from, is that the number? I haven't read the full release, but I think it's 42% of Canadians now are not born in Canada.
Yep.
So I think that was the number. Does anybody, can they correct me or confirm that's what it was? I just saw the snippet of the census release. I guess it was last week or the week before.
Yeah,
I was surprised, but it definitely demonstrates the need for this kind of work.
absolutely.
So thank you for your effort. Members of the board, the motion here is simply to receive, since this was a feedback issue. So can I get a motion to receive this report? Thank you, Stephen. Seconded by, thank you, Meredith. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, and what an appropriate next item, 6.6, Talent Management Strategic Framework.
So similar to the DEI strategic framework, this one was also included in the CEO goals. It was actually brought forward in part by the board at the beginning of the year, recognizing that talent management will continue, I think, to be very, very important and a bit of a struggle over the next couple of years. So we have put together a framework for you. You will see a lot of overlap with the DEI one because I think they really do engage with them. But in this framework, we are looking at planning, attracting, developing, retaining, and transitioning. So the full life cycle of employees. And they're so happy to take feedback.
Questions? Yes, Stephen, right off the mark.
Yeah, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for this. I think it's obviously important for lots of reasons. My eyes landed when I was looking at this on the attracting, but expand recruitment beyond traditional library avenues, which I think is amazing, and we've had these conversations before. Oh, I don't know if my mic is on. But yeah, so yeah, going beyond the traditional library avenues, to use your language, which I think is great. I say that in particular because the external news, external to the library, are significant layoffs in lots of different sectors, IT sector being one of them. And I know they're not necessarily analogous, but those people have amazing skills as well.
Yep.
So I know there's no magic bullet here whatsoever, but is that the kind of, are you looking at sectors, are you looking beyond libraries in that regard in terms of the macroeconomic environment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anytime a position becomes vacant, particularly if it's a standalone position, we really do re-examine the education. Is it necessary to have a library background? We have made some changes to that. So our marketing manager, our technology manager, and the staff underneath them come from those worlds, where traditionally it would have been library staff who were trained in that area. So we are trying to branch out and see, okay, where is it appropriate? Because I think it just brings a diversity of thought that's really important.
Which I don't want to preempt what you're going to be telling us later, but it speaks to your role as CEO in representing the library and getting out there into the dialogue, and someone who has unfortunately perhaps lost their job that may not have thought of the library before.
Yes.
And seeing some of the thought leadership out there may think, well, that might be a place that they can apply their skills, especially for changing the criteria in a win-win kind of way.
Exactly.
So that's great. Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Oh, Bill, go ahead.
So when I was going through this, it seemed to me that there's a lot of actions here, and it's like, it's going to take a lot of time. And I was just wondering, some of these actions, I guess, are already ongoing. And so it's not like there's going to be like tons of additional work for everybody. Is that right? Is that?
Yeah, so some of these things are in place or in the process of being put in place.
Okay.
The framework just kind of condenses it all and shows the full path and how they all kind of connect together.
Right.
But I didn't want to wait to bring the framework to start putting things in place where they made sense to do so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So all these actions are you think it's attainable through the year?
I do.
Yeah.
Tricia does.
Maybe I've been out of the workforce too long. I can't remember how long this stuff takes, but it just seems like, wow, this is a lot of work.
Well, it has a different role, right? So there's my role in it, there's Joe's role in it, there's also the new director, the manager, so making sure and kind of like, that way we can, it kind of gets spread out. Because unless talent management is being thought at, particularly at the leadership level, at all different levels through their coaching, their one-on-one conversations to really understand the staff that we have and the areas that they're looking for. I mean, not all staff will move up in the organization, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for them if we're aware of where they have interest or where they have skill sets that we might be able to take advantage of. So.
Yeah. Well, it's great to do that for sure, but anyway, that's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Further comments or questions? I have a question that might be hopefully quick this time. In terms of recruiting, again, this whole new world of fighting for staff, which is what we're, whether you're in private sector or public sector, it's the same thing. You're out there and you're making your best pitch to get people to choose you. Pick me.
Yeah.
Have we thought of, or maybe we do this? Do we actually literally hover around the doors of library science schools to say, hey, have you considered us? Or do we do any of that kind of that proactive, sort of like the animation studios, literally, they're like sports recruiters at Sheridan College, and before they even graduate, they're there saying, here's my card, call me, we'll do lunch. Have we thought of doing things like that to start getting the cream of the crop talent out there?
No, not necessarily. I mean, we could definitely look at it. I think pre-COVID, the 2 library schools in Ontario, there's 3 library schools in Ontario, would have open houses, and I think you could kind of go and recruit. Our challenge is that we do require an MLIS for a number of positions, but not the majority of our positions. And we've been actively trying to do that where that's appropriate, but it's a very specific kind of industry. So we're, as you know, speaking to Stephen's question earlier, is how we can actually open those up a little bit more where possible to do that. Now, the library world is actually very small in a lot of ways, and there's one place that all libraries in Canada post. It's called the Partnership Board, and if you want a library job, that's where you go. All the library jobs in Canada, that's where they're being posted. So for that way, that actually works to our advantage in a very specific way. For if you're looking for somebody with a master's. If you're not looking for somebody with a master's, nobody else knows that exists. So I don't know that the town just recently got a corporate license for LinkedIn, so we're excited to be able to explore what we might be able to do with that, just to open up kind of a different market.
Okay, great, thank you. Meredith, see, I keep inspiring more questions.
Does part of this plan include support to, say, middle managers, to support them in their development on how they can help their own leadership skills to support those that report into them?
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that we've been doing, and we started this in 2019, and then it took a little bit of a bump, obviously, but we refocused in it in 2022, and will continue to focus 2023, is really building a strong coaching culture, which is that middle manager, and also like my coaching, the director level coaching, but strongly our managers and leaders, and how they can be really strong coaches for each other, but also for their staff to have those conversations, and I think just build those relationships and do a better job of identifying, you know, this is the job description. However, there are opportunities, you know, if you speak Swahili, maybe there's an opportunity that may not be right there. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Oh, boy, look at this. I'm going to go with Andrew, then Stephen.
Just related to some of the measurements here. So I'll just pick an example. Under retaining, item 1 by Q1, increase pulse survey result by 5% related to the organization having supports in place to show they care about mental health. So is that measurement happening at the end of Q1? And if we haven't hit the 5% growth, where's the pivot point? Like, I don't want to wait till the end of the year to go back and collect all of the results and then say, you know, we came this close, but not close enough, et cetera.
Yeah. So what that actually is so the town has been doing a pulse survey every year, which the library participates in. It normally happens in May, June. And then we get our results later in the year. The team is just finalizing their action plans on the pulse survey, which will be implemented in Q1, which will then hopefully shift a little bit for that. When that pulse survey happens later in the year, we'll see the results.
Okay. So we're going to measure it once a year.
The pulse survey happens once a year for that particular thing. There are other indicators that we can use throughout the year, obviously. Part of the coaching process is to ask managers to provide feedback on what they're hearing, challenges that they're having. You know, we do have, in January, we are doing staff focus groups. The pulse survey is fantastic, but it doesn't really allow in-depth conversation. So there are things that came up in the pulse survey that I'm like, I need more information about. For example, staff would like more support around their mental health and well-being. Well, that can be very individual. And so bringing in staff and focus groups to actually have a conversation about what does that look like to you and how can the library support. So we are doing those. It was supposed to be in December. We had some scheduling challenges, so we're going to run those in January, and they'll continue to inform.
Okay. So with that knowledge, obviously the pulse survey is the most scientific measurement, but it's the longest lag in getting the results. Can we add in some language that talks about what you just described with that ongoing feedback cycle?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Stephen?
I was happy to hear you, I was happy to hear you talk about LinkedIn as a very active poster and ghostwriter on that platform. It's all the stuff you already know, but it's a great place to be And I'm wondering if you're going to be doing some peer reviews in terms of what other libraries are doing too. But anyway, my point simply is, I think it's a great space for you guys to be in, and I'm very happy to hear that you're there, because it is, I have found in using it over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it's expanded a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's a lot deeper. It's becoming trivial on the edges, in my humble opinion, but at the core of it, I think is probably really good for you. So I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything further? I don't know, because we're talking about personnel, I'm just going to ask this question now. I don't think there's an agenda item unless you're going to cover it in the CEO update, but do you have any feedback from the staff day?
The majority of us, it went really well. We got pretty solid feedback from staff. We did offer, as I said, there was a morning session. It was required for all staff. We held it at 3 different sites because staff were concerned about all being in one place. And then we did get good feedback about offering multiple options in the afternoon. That was like that. There always continues to be tweaks about, because of the change where we did the Food for Life in the afternoon. A lot of staff really enjoyed that, but it did take out some learning time that we would have done previously, right? Where, the last staff development day in 2019, we kind of were all together in the morning, and then there was like 3 sessions that they all could have taken in the afternoons. So they could have had something a bit more specific. So this year we did. It was a lot of general, because we wanted something that could appeal to no matter what position you were in, it kind of related to you. So we did get some feedback about, well, yeah, but I would have liked something that was a bit more specific to me. So we're thinking, we'll see what the situation is for next year and kind of adapt and take that into account.
So, but the bottom line, it was a useful experience for everybody, and it was a good investment
Yes.
on the part of the organization, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, members of the board, the action on this particular item is receipt. So I look for a motion to receive item 6.6, the Talent Management Strategic Framework. Thank you, Bill. Meredith, you want to be in the minutes? Okay, Meredith's going to second it. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 6.7, the Information Technology Solutions Service Level Agreement, or otherwise known as the SLA.
Yes. So the board has gotten a lot of reports around this so far this year, and I make a lot of reference to them in here versus trying to make this report even longer. But the good news is that we have created a draft SLA with ITS as a result of phase 1 of the transition for OPL-specific technologies to the library next year. So this SLA would only come into effect once the budget was approved and staff got hired and onboarded, and then the staff in the new year are actually going to work closely together to create a transition plan to make sure that goes really smoothly and there are no noticeable challenges for both staff and public as we make that transition. Overall, but I think both sides are quite pleased about where we landed with the SLA. We'll continue to tweak it as it gets implemented, but you will see from the 2013 one to this one, it's significantly more detailed through part of that. And there are the 2 pieces where the SLA is a bit broader, and then there's a role and responsibility document that's a bit more specific. And I think will probably provide the guidelines for how the staff actually kind of put this in place.
Comments, questions? Stephen?
On page 73, I do find it kind of ironically funny that 0.6 glossary says there's an error, it cannot be found.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's kind of funny.
Oh, I never checked the table of contents, right? Like,
In any event, in the spirit of levity, I
Yeah,
offer that
thank you.
observation.
Thank you, Stephen. I will fully admit, I have not read the details of the SLA at this point. I hope to at some point before we actually have to formally adopt it. I'm just curious, does the SLA doesn't change any of our domain usage, does it? Like, will we remain as part of Oakville.ca, so your email address is to be, none of that changes?
no, particularly for the phase 1, it is just OPL-specific technology. So our self-checks, our sorters, our RFID, our 3D printers, things that are only held in OPL.
Right.
As we look at potentially, phase 2, phase 3, other maybe shared, but right now, the website, servers, all of that will remain with them. ITS's focus is really cybersecurity, so it makes sense that they would keep all of that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. I know that correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think that ITS is moving the email services to Microsoft 365 away from Exchange Server. So I just wonder if there was something coincident with that maybe we would be on our own, or we're going to remain within the Oakville.
Yeah, so this is an
Active
ongoing
Directory.
conversation, because Microsoft 360 is a challenge for shared computers. However, there is a different type of license that we can get in the interim, but I think eventually we will have to look at our public access computers and what that looks like, because Microsoft will no longer be available to us as that option. It's a little while off, so we can start planning for that. These are conversations we're having with ITS now.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Bill?
Quick question. I mean, there's a lot of information here. One thing that sort of went into my head was, you know, the key risks of this switch, like this. What are, I mean, are you able to tell us what they actually are? I mean, it just seems to me that can be a bunch of unknowns here, and I don't know, like, I read it, but I didn't go word for word through the thing, but I was just wondering if there's, any major risks.
I think the most significant risks at this moment in time is actually the market and who we can hire, and then what level of training and how long that is going to take. Library-specific technology, like none of it is fundamentally unique to us, but it is going to require somebody who's a bit of a jack of all trades, because it requires hardware, it requires software. Somebody who's going to be able to go in and with obviously support from the vendors, work with the different equipment, but also software. It's obviously somebody we need somebody who's a strong team player, because they need to coordinate not only with library staff, but with ITS. So that's one of the biggest risks for me is that hiring process and ensuring we get the right people in the job, because if we get the right people in the job, then it'll make everything else so much easier. There are some strong benefits to it, in that we understand how people use things better than ITS. We can be more responsive than ITS, because at ITS it's the whole town has ITS needs, and where do we kind of fit in there? But it's also, ITS staff have a breadth of knowledge. There's all kinds of them, and so we're going to lose that a little bit. Now we'll still be connected with them, so hopefully we'll be able to tap in and be like, hey, we're struggling with this. Can I run this by you? Because that's somebody who has specific knowledge of that particular area, whereas our staff will need to be generalists.
Right.
But again, that's how we build that relationship moving forward.
Right. Okay.
That's it. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Yes, Stephen?
I'm sorry if I'm misreading this, but again, not to sound pedantic, but on page 83, it seems to end as outlined in, and it does not seem to continue on the next page, and likewise, page 84 doesn't seem to continue. So originally, the original document is secure, or is all together. But if it's not, I just flag it to you here that you seem to be missing some parts.
Yeah, they're not missing. We were having trouble with the PDF, where no matter how much I tried to put it all in a row, whenever we PDF'd it, it would just separate itself out. So we'll look at it. So there's nothing missing, because it should be outlined in.
As outlined in,
you're not.
ITS
You're
will
not.
provide.
You are right.
Yeah, no, it doesn't flow. So I just want to make sure you guys are not missing something.
Yep.
We can read it or not, but just as long as the document itself has not been compromised.
No, actually, no, it is right, because it does read, ITS will be informed and involved in the initiatives as outlined in the new and expanded asset services section therein.
Okay.
Blue,
Yeah, but then, all right, but then okay.
I think it's just how we have that section highlighted, but
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine, because then,
that looks like a
Yeah,
section.
but it is confusing, sorry about
because
that.
the 84 to 85 does the exact same thing. It looks like
Yeah.
another section ahead. So anyway, as long as the document's fine, that's fine, but
Yeah.
just, I know these and also library is inconsistently spelled with lower L or capital L.
Okay.
I leave that with you.
That was fighting words for Stephen.
It's either a proper noun or it's not,
right,
man. Like,
exactly,
one
yeah.
or the other.
Okay, further comments or questions? Andrew?
Thank you. Under Appendix B, I was looking, and perhaps I missed it, but I didn't see any mention of photocopiers unless they're covered under public miscellaneous equipment. And I know we
Sorry,
had some
Appendix
questions about
B is,
photocopiers previously. It's the green table.
oh, okay, so what was the question, sorry?
Where are the photocopiers contemplated?
So the
public use
photocopiers are
photocopiers.
still with ITS.
Okay. All right. Are we still paying monthly leases for equipment that's not working?
No, so our printers, we verified that the printers are owned, not leased.
Okay.
But they are up for replacement. So we are nudging ITS to get that to happen sooner rather than later.
Got it. And I'm just curious, again, under public miscellaneous equipment, what's a gaming table?
What's a what,
A
sorry?
gaming table.
Oh, so actually, we're just about to buy one, which is why we include it in here, because we've seen them at other libraries and they look super fun. It's basically just a giant iPad that's a table.
Oh, okay. I've seen
And then you
those,
have
yeah.
apps, and so you can like play different games on the table. So you can play like, air hockey as a digital kind of piece, or you can do like zoos, or it's one of those.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Were you concerned we were going to get into games of chance like blackjack and things like that?
Well, actually, I was thinking more like Warhammer or other
yeah.
RPGs, which I don't think
yeah.
need much technological support.
True, good point, yeah. Okay, so the action on this particular item, again, is receive for feedback. When do we expect this to come back in final form?
It'll probably come back in February. The board doesn't have any real changes to it, so we'll go back with ITS and kind of review it again. We can bring it back in January. We can bring it back in February for approval.
Okay.
I'd just like to take another look at it.
And it will come back for approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as this is a whole new SLA.
Yeah.
So we will come for approval. As we tweak things, we may just bring it for information, and then the board can comment. But this is such a significant shift. The board
really
should
is.
absolutely approve it.
It really, and particularly with the role of technology in the library world
Yeah.
right now, it is one of the, other than books, this is the next most important thing that we manage.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, members of the board, this is a receive for feedbacks. Did I get a motion to do that, please? Thank you, Andrew. Seconded by. Thank you, Bill. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving along to 6.8, the library space booking policy, which we had hinted at earlier.
Yeah, so this came to the board back in October, and the board requested some clarity around what and when library spaces can be used for free. So we did add in words around individual study and group study, just to kind of provide guidance that for those purposes, those spaces are available, and people can come in and take advantage of them on a first come, first served basis.
Okay, questions, comments? Not seeing any. I do have one, of course. One of the things that we made a big deal about, I'm not sure how much it was taken up, especially with COVID happening, or maybe even more with COVID, but what that was providing spaces for businesses that could use for incubation purposes or just having meetings or whatever the case is. There's a clause here that I just think is not friendly to that, and that is the sales of goods and or services by commercial organizations or individuals are not permitted. I mean, by very nature of the fact that we would be allowing businesses to operate, is that overly restrictive? I imagine you're talking about retail sales out of, like physical sales out of the library, but would that be subject to?
I thought it said that it was, I approved that.
Right, but that seems like an onerous situation that the CEO would have to approve a simple rental of somebody using an office to close a deal on a new photocopier.
And it really speaks to selling.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes in, for example, Pampered Chef just potentially wanted to rent spaces from us, or different services like that, and that we don't do. we have had this conversation recently with CNIB, and they asked if they could come in and sell their equipment. We said, absolutely, that makes complete sense for that. If somebody's come in and just doing business dealing and not actually like selling a product, that's different to me.
Okay. Maybe I'm being a bit pedantic now, but I mean, if somebody was, for example, if in this world now where there's, people aren't going to the office all the time, if somebody wanted to have a remote meeting and didn't want to bring a client over to the office and use one of the rooms, and the purpose of that was to sell somebody something.
Yep.
I'm just wondering, would that line cause confusion for the staff as they're trying to facilitate that kind of a rental?
I don't believe so. That happens pretty regularly now.
Okay.
So even like tutoring services, they come in, they use the space. That's a service that they're providing for
Right,
cash.
right.
So we have no issue with that. Services is very different than a product that they're actually physically selling in that moment versus coming in and having a meeting. What they're doing in that meeting is up to them. And we don't ask, so.
Is that, I mean, could you throw a word in there like retail sales as opposed to just sales? Because then that would imply the sales of products,
Yeah, we could do that.
like on, in situ as opposed to.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
if there was an author's night where they're selling books,
right.
I went to the Burlington Library to see Professor Tim Cook. Gave a phenomenal speech.
Yeah.
They're selling books like crazy.
Yeah, but we tend to do that
That's
internally,
allowable.
so
Yeah,
that's
I just
us.
want to make sure, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure,
Yeah.
just for the record, that's, because that is a retail sale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's allowable under existing,
Correct.
yeah, perfect.
And it is still allowable, it just, if somebody comes in and wants to rent it where, I want to host a Pampered Chef and sell that, then it would need to come and it would be a discussion, and myself or a designate would make that decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of overall operative language that talks about designates, by the way? So when you say things like approved by the CEO, does it say or designate there?
It does there, yes.
Okay, I just wasn't,
Yeah.
didn't have it in front of me. Okay, great, that's all I had. Go last time to the board. Questions, comments? Not seeing any. This is a approval, so.
Approve as amended?
As amended, approval as amended, so that's adding retail in that section with respect to sales. Can I get a motion to approve, please? Savannah, do you want to get on the minutes today? Thank you. Okay, seconded by Meredith, thank you very much. Last chance for comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. 6.9, Halton Information Providers, Q4 2022 update. Where is Marcus?
Marcus is sick.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he is unable to attend, so he has left me notes, so we're gonna do my best. If not, Joe is also here as backup support. And you can tell Marcus is really sick because he literally left me like one line per slide. So we provide a Halton Information Provider update to the board several times a year. This is the current one. So this is just showing HIP usage year over year for 2020 to 2022. You may have noticed as part of the performance measures that HIP stats are down from last year. I'm not sure that's unexpected given the 2021 going into 2022. But Marcus and his team are looking at what is driving that and how we can get back out into our community partners to start promoting that again. We didn't necessarily get a chance to do that a lot through 2020 and 2021. So maybe just doing refreshers with our community groups out there. However, you can see that, and these are Oakville unique results based on IP, what the key drivers are so far this year. So Oakville Recreation, Culture, and Senior Program is number 1. Counseling is, not surprising, 2, different facilities in there. So those are the top searches for, and as I said, OPL specific. Let me just check. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, can you go back to that for a
Yep.
second? So those are largely organizational bases. I'm surprised there's not something there that says something along the lines of, I need housing or
food bank.
or food bank.
So that may be the result of, because I'm pretty sure that, and I can validate with Marcus, that these are actually things people are typing into the search bar versus going in through our portal where they can actually select, how we have those different kind of tiles to be like housing and then kind of drill down organically versus searching. I think that can be the difference, is that, okay, I'm looking for food insecurity, so I'm going here and here and here, versus they're not typing in food insecurity. Whereas somebody's looking for an organization, then they just use the search bar. But I can confirm with Marcus.
I'm surprised the words children's Tylenol is not on this list.
You and I both.
Was that Shoppers Today?
Yes.
We were in Buffalo a couple days ago and I bought several boxes for family or anybody that needs them, so.
That was the Hunger Games.
Now they've said that on YouTube.
Yeah, you'll have contacts, because that is all over
I have
Facebook
2
right now.
left. And I got a dirty look from the clerk at CVS.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So the Health and Information Providers is made up of OPL and 4 partners, and as such, they set a strategic plan every year. Given the challenges with COVID, some of the key points have been pushed into their next strategic plan. So here he's just identifying the different items that are being moved from the 2020-2022 into the 2020 to 2023 and forward pieces to that. So continue the use for SIOC data maintenance. So SIOC is the database structure that we use to support HIP. It's designed for information retrieval. Become a community of interest provider, providing access and navigation for marginalized. So we continue to do work on that. Become a community of interest. It's in different sections. Again, apologize. And then increase access strategy, which is, again, just how do we continue to make it as accessible and known as possible? Because people keep telling me it's like OPL and HIP, best kept secrets. And I'm like, how do we make it not a secret out there? Because there's definitely a strong, sorry, I noticed a spelling mistake. In there. Yeah, exactly.
I'm waiting for 5 minutes to point one out on the last page.
Yeah. Out there in order to kind of do that. So we do have a HIP online media kit that was produced this year. We are seeing a pickup of almost 400 new users, some from OPL websites, some directly from the directory, and then through Marcus's communication out into the public. He wanted me to reminder that the HIP online media kit is available to counselors and any board members who have newsletters out there, so they can continue to promote that as needed. So November 16th was Information and Referral Day. We are lucky enough that Oakville always declares that day. This year we had it a presentation as part of the Oakville Child and Youth Networking Committee, where both Marcus and I spoke about the importance of information retrieval to those organizations. So the Halton Newcomer Information Pod has been a project that's been in place, it feels like forever, from a grant from Immigration Refugee Canada. But we are delighted that all 10 of the infopods have been deployed out in the community, and we're excited to hear the feedback that we're getting. So basically, this is the Halton Information Database that is available in specific locations. People can go and search it, and we actually did a print. So if somebody is a newcomer, they're suffering spousal abuse, they can go and they can print the information, so it's not going to an email that could be viewed by somebody else, and they can keep that as private as possible. So we do have them at our 60 Mile branch, Glen Abbey branch, Iroquois Ridge, QEP, the Newcomer Information Center, Burlington Public Library, Halton Hills, and then up in Milton as well. So as I said, we're quite excited to do that, and this is just what that opening screen looks like. So HIP also has the Information Oakville Virtual Community Board. So the numbers here are from January to October, almost 1,200 new users, a lot of them coming directly from the OPL site. So this came about as part of a HIP shift. Paper seems to be shrinking, so how can we still provide a place for people to post community boards? We still have community boards in our branches, but not everybody is coming in or able to see them. So this is kind of a digital version of what we tend to have in our branches. So we are seeing some success with that. And then this is just a comment that came to us. It was taped to our Glen Abbey food shelf. If you have a place for me to stay for the night, please let me know. I cannot go to the Halton Lighthouse shelter because I have no documentation of residence, so I have nowhere to go. And so these are types of things that actually come to us, and Marcus is able to reach out and kind of connect those individuals with services within the organization. So this one came through Glen Abbey. This is not an unusual occurrence for Central. There is quite a high underhoused population down around Central, and Marcus has been tremendous in connecting them to various areas. We have been having broader conversations with Wesley Housing, who's responsible for housing for the region, on how to train our staff to have build stronger relationships and kind of nudge people in different directions. People tend to be on the street for a reason, but that's not to say that we can't build a relationship and potentially provide support where we can. And the Health and Information Provider Community Services Database is a great way for us to do that. So that is the HIP report.
Questions, Bill?
I was just wondering, what does that mean? He couldn't go to Lighthouse because he doesn't have evidence of documentation of residence.
So my understanding, and somebody more knowledgeable than me can correct me, is that one of the key problems with shelters is that you need to have ID. And that one thing that really happens, particularly in tent cities, is people get rolled for their ID. Their ID gets stolen, so they can't access the shelters. Or if they go into shelters, they get robbed, and so they don't have the ID to go back into the shelters. So he's talking about ID. Because they can't enter the shelter and then unless they have ID, and then it's hard for them to get ID. It tends to be a bit of a vicious cycle.
So he just doesn't have ID.
Yeah, and he can't go in.
That's a surprising comment. I mean, I through my associate,
Yep.
my in-house associate, my wife, I know that's access to shelters is becoming a bit of a challenge. And there needs to be some barriers broken down to reduce the cost of entry, because identification is expensive. If you've lost your driver's license, or sorry, they often don't have driver's license. If you lost your birth certificates, that's like a $50 thing, and you have to order it and you have to wait for it. It's a challenge. So I'm gonna mention that one specifically, because I haven't heard that one with respect to shelter. I've heard it with respect to getting social assistance and things like that. Getting ID is difficult and expensive. So I know that's a challenge, but I didn't know for the housing.
shelters.
That's a shame. Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I know I'm small, but.
No, I just didn't look right.
Does HIP have a relationship with OCF? Because I see, promotes Oakville resources, and there's clearly some overlap because Wendy and Sarah and their amazing team at OCF is doing a lot of outreach, even more so with their Give campaign and so on.
Yeah.
And I come at it from an OCF perspective simply because I know them more. Does HIP have a connection with them? Because it seems if they don't, they might want to talk to each other.
No, it's a good point. I mean, OPL has a strong relationship with OCF.
Exactly. That's why I'm thinking.
But HIP not so much as a specific organization. So that's actually a good point. Yeah, Wendy and I should have that conversation.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there's only one of Marcus. And there's a lot of organizations
Absolutely.
that act as a community hub, and being able to properly liaise with them is a challenge. So I know that one firsthand as well. I have a question. So a couple years ago, they deployed these widgets, and I know that my business put one on their page, and I know others that have them. Do we have any statistics about what kind of traffic we're getting from those widgets?
I don't have it offhand, but I can follow up with you on it.
That'd be great. It'd just be nice to know if that's a successful thing, and if it is, then we should be obviously promoting it through our respective, organizations and schools and whatever else as well, because it is really, one of Oakville and Halton's best kept secrets. There's no question.
Absolutely.
And last question, without identifying the name, just because we're not on camera, did that legal matter ever get resolved? The outstanding debt that Marcus was trying to collect from one of our affiliates on the HIP info side? Because we provide network access, or we provide a feed.
Oh, yes.
Data, and there was a
that has
client
been
that wasn't paying the bill.
Yeah, we did reach an agreement.
Oh, good, excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, members of the board, can I get a motion to receive this information, please? Thank you, Bill. You are so fast off the draw today. He wants veg or Wheaties? Just exercise. Okay, good. I saw Stephen's hand, so that's seconded by Stephen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the highlight of every board meeting, the CEO update. Not trying to oversell it or anything.
I know, it just raises the pressure.
Yeah, pressure. Don't feel pressured.
So just an update on North Park, not a significant update since last October. However, the tender has been issued. It got issued on December 2nd, so that's very exciting. And it's expected to be awarded in early 2023. We continue to work with Diamond Schmidt. Everything, but 85% is done in terms of the facility. Right now, we're in conversations with Diamond Schmidt about, the organization of the stacks. All of those types of pieces. The children's area, we're tweaking some of the children's area. We're looking at potential areas for art and what an art call could look like. So those are the conversations that we're having right now, and we'll continue to update the board as that goes forward. And then a new one, now that 16 Mile is off, I put on the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Facilities Master Plan. That contract has been awarded to Monteith Brown Planning Consultants. We did have a kickoff meeting on Tuesday, went really, really well. So we just were able to confirm all the different points related to the plan design, and I'll bring an update to the board, particularly around timelines around the public consultation and those pieces to the January board meeting. But I was very excited. Monteith Brown's proposal really focused on libraries, which I was very, very pleased to see. Not all of them do. They tend to focus the majority on facilities. This is also a bit of a different take on the master plan this time around. It has facilities in it. But we've shifted to not just think about facilities, it's also the program in the facilities, but also the gaps. So it's what's happening in the facility and what should be happening outside of the facility. And that's not just libraries, recreation is looking at that, and parks is looking at that, as well as how all three of us can better support each other and the community as a whole. So we're really excited to see what Monteith Brown can collaborate with and create for us.
We've dealt with them before, right?
Very much so, yeah.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah. So as was indicated in the report that came to the board earlier, OPL is moving to one app. The board may remember that we did provide an overview of apps. I think it was last year, identifying that we did have two apps and one is end of life. So we are shifting over with that. So we're in the process of doing that. It discontinues at the end of December. So we are getting messaging out and hopefully shifting over as many people as possible. This also does really align with BiblioCommons, which has been our catalog vendor for a very, very, very long time, and just has seamless integration with the website. So again, all of this information was in the board package. Friends of the Library book sale. So we are hosting another Friends of the Library book sale this weekend. It starts tomorrow, runs into Saturday. So if anybody's looking for some reads for their Christmas vacation, highly recommend that you stop by. They were setting up today. I was up there. Staff were taking wanders in, so I'm not sure what's left, but there was quite the selection up there. So we're excited to see these come back, and they've been very, very successful for us this year. So Culture Day. So Oakville was recognized as one of the top participating communities for 2022, which we were very excited about. Oakville was recognized as number 5 for Culture Day's digital champion and number 1 nationally among mid-sized cities. So that's fantastic. Out of the 14 digital programs that were offered, 3 were offered by OPL, and out of the 84 in-person programs offered, 68 of these were OPL programs. So we are very excited that we were such a driving force in Culture Days this year, and we're already in conversations with the town about how we can continue to grow that for next year's Culture Days. And then beaver visits. So OPL has been a hotspot for beavers this season. It's been really excited. I didn't know that. I was at Glen Abbey a couple weeks ago, and the creation specialist there was telling me about all the different beaver troops. Colonies, yeah. Sorry, that have been in to see it. They've created these buttons, so they come in and they make their own buttons, and they watch the 3D printer kind of create a beaver. So there is So it's exciting to see them come in and kind of explore the creation zone. Andrew was one of the leaders, Scout, who participated in that, and so he's given some great feedback on how we can make that even better, so we're excited to do that.
They love making those buttons, though.
Oh, that button maker, like who knew? People love making buttons. Yeah, I think we're getting buttons for all the branches are getting their own button maker.
How come we don't get to make buttons on the board?
Pardon?
No, you bring it to the board meeting, let's go make buttons.
Yeah. So, I always make them backwards. And yeah, that's my board report.
Thank you. Questions? Stephen? You look trepidatious.
Well, I feel like I'm talking too much.
Well, everybody's getting a piece of this meeting tonight, it's good.
One comment, one observation. I'll start with simply, because it is a document of record, page 127. I believe Councillor McNeese is Ward 1, not
Yes.
Ward 7.
That is correct.
So there you go, thank you. In addition to that, and apologies if this has been talked about ad nauseum because I've missed a few meetings, but I was just at Stauffer Library at Queens because our daughter now goes there, and she gave us a tour of the library. I was blown away by the whiteboards and how much students use the whiteboards in there, like totally blown away. Is the new library, do we have any whiteboards in there? Is that being contemplated? It may not be appropriate, but it's just a recent experience for me, and it was heavily used by lots of people.
You mean traditional whiteboards or smart boards?
No, I thought they were going to be smart boards. Maybe they were, but they're being used as whiteboards because
Interesting.
it's in the quiet areas. Students are collaborating with each other or writing their notes on
Yeah.
a wall to stand to think, in other words. And so when our daughter went in, she saw it and wiped it off and did her own thing. So anyway, maybe everyone has seen that. Maybe no one's seen it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just never seen it myself.
Yeah.
And Stauffer, first of all, is an amazing library.
Yeah.
And second of all, I thought of you folks when I was there. And again, it may not be in the budget, may not be contemplated, but I at least offer it as a suggestion, if not, because they were, if they weren't used, I wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
They were used by every student I saw.
No, it's interesting to know that's never come up nobody's ever requested a whiteboard.
I never would have thought of it.
Yeah. So they weren't planned to put in, but I mean, they're easy to put up on a wall.
It's wonderfully old
Yeah.
school, and it was
Yeah.
used by, and they had all these kind of quiet pods and whatnot, and I looked around without being obtrusive, and every single one had something written on all the whiteboards.
No, that's cool.
So I just offer that.
Oh, no, it's good information.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions, other than Stephen? How's 60 Mile Branch going?
It's going really well. I mean, we were struggling a little bit with traffic, which is why we were excited to host the new counselors meet and greet. They estimate we had about 400 people. So people didn't know where we were before. They certainly don't now. So that's one of the conversations that I'll have with the team at 16 Mile over the next couple of weeks is have they seen a pickup of traffic through that branch. So we were really excited to host that simply because it brought so many people in. And we were able to have some really good conversations, so.
Do you have a comparison of footfalls between the old location and the new location yet, or is it still too early?
We could take a look at it. We'd really only have October. We could look at October, November. It would have
I
to
don't
be,
want to make work, but
Yeah.
it's something maybe you could
can look
add
at it.
to the, one of the statistics reports in the future. It'd
Yeah.
be interesting to know if that change of location had any impact on it.
yeah. I will say that the demand for service at our OPL Express in 16 Mile is massive. We're actually struggling with that. So we're hoping to actually shift people back to the branch because I think they kind of got used to using the OPL Express while it was shut. Because that is full.
There's a lot of traffic through 16
Yeah.
Mile, the recreation center, so it's probably people just ask convenient to do that.
Yeah. And we did add, it always had the lockers, but with the closure of the branch, we did put in a browse and borrow as well. So it's even more, I think, appealing to people for a quick kind of in-out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And in terms of the move itself and all of the challenges around the physical plant there, have there been any, has that all worked out well? No damage, no issues around the reconstruction of our Lego-like library branch?
No, I think the only outstanding item that I need to follow up on, I think I mentioned that, is that when they put it back together again, they put kind of like metal pieces on the floor where they kind of separate. So when you're going with a book
Yeah.
truck, it's like a thunk, 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 thunk. So they were going to try and mitigate that. I think that's the only thing that's outstanding. It did flag a couple issues that when we move it again, we'll have to pay closer attention to. The signage, where like how it's situated, the signage isn't great for people driving, so we have added a sign to the back of the building so that people coming down Nayagawa can kind of get that visual piece to it. But it is offset, and then because the sign is on this side, not that side, we couldn't necessarily move it anyway. So there's lessons learned, so that we'll take into the next one, but I think for this one, the only thing that's outstanding that I know of off the top of my head is those bumps, which again, it's functional, it's just annoying.
It's too bad the orientation of the building had to expose all the air conditioner units along Niagara though.
Yeah, I know site plan. So,
Any further questions for the CEO? Not seeing any, let's move to receive her report, please. Somebody, please, I would like a motion. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Stephen. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's received. Members of the board, I want to draw your attention to item 7.1. That is an update on the Director of Customer Experience Recruitment. You did, I assume, see the report and the extremely highly qualified, impressive candidate that the team have picked. I apologize I wasn't able to participate. The post-election period was
no, it's fair.
crazy.
Yep.
Would anybody like to go in camera on this, or are you satisfied to make a motion to receive the information? Are we receiving? We don't
You're
approve this,
endorsing.
do we? Do we approve this one?
You endorse.
We endorse, okay. Is that the word in the, I don't have
Yeah, it is endorsed.
thank you.
Yeah.
I lost my iPad, I have to admit.
You still haven't found it?
No,
Oh.
no, so, and eScribe's not terrific on a computer, unfortunately, so.
No, it's not. Yeah.
What's that?
It's not terrific at all.
No. Andrew,
I'll move to go into in-camera session.
oh, you want to have some questions? Fair enough. Andrew's moving. Can I get a seconder to move to in camera? That's Stephen. I am going to read, for the sake of folks that are watching in the YouTube land, we are moving to a meeting closed to the public, also known as being in camera. And we are doing that in accordance with the on Municipalities Act, which allows us to do so in certain circumstances. And the circumstance today is to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So I would like to call the question about going in camera, please. All in favor? Okay, that is carried, and we are going in camera at this point. I'll ask the committee clerk to rig the room for a meeting closed to the public, and I will give everybody, let's give everybody a 5-minute recess to have a bio break or enjoy some of the, is there snacks or just drinks back there?
No, we're not allowed to give you snacks.
Oh, because the council chamber, yeah, right. Those clerks are so strict. Yeah. Kathy, you know? Okay, meeting is recessed for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 8:36.
Yeah, I forgot.
Try to live through
Cool.
I'm currently in my first of 3 years at Sheridan, so it's kind of fun to be at that point because you have all great ideas and you're not limited by actual technology. Sheridan College in the glass department here, they ran a bit of a competition amongst the students. I submitted my design and then it got sent off. One of the things that I did before I submitted my design to the town was I had a talk with the actual professors to make sure that it was doable.
It'll look not unlike this. The central piece will actually have a wave in it. It's got this oak leaf shape to it. When you look down on it, it'll have a nameplate on there. And then when it comes out of the mold, it looks not unlike this. It'll be on the end of the pipe and we just break it off. And we put that in to cool. And then when it's done, we saw it off right about here and polish the bottom. So of course this one's been sawn already. The process of the thing kind of goes like we start out with a spike of glass. We form we take a gather and we form it into kind of a conical piece of glass. Then we get a couple of what we call gathers. We gather glass on the end of a rod, and then we roll it in colored powder, which is basically really finely crushed glass with color in it. Then we melt that in. We roll it a few times just to make sure that it's got lots of solid color on it. What we do is we take molten glass out of the furnace and we roll it in this colored powder, the glass color, and it sticks. It'll stick to the glass, the hot glass. And then what we do is we take it over to the glory hole and we melt it in. So the glory hole gets it nice and hot, reheats the glass. Once it's melted in nice and neat, I'll take it over to Paul there and he'll stick it on a piece. But I want to get it pretty hot so that I don't have I get a nice small trail for him. And then we apply that onto our spike, right? So we have two colors. We have two guys doing it basically. We'll lay on one color and then we'll flip it over and we'll lay on the other color. So we have basically 3 rods of color together, right? Because we don't want the glass to cool off too much after he's done it, after he's formed his spiky bit there. We don't want the glass to cool off too much, and we don't want to have to reheat it over and over and over again. So it takes 2 of us with bit rods to form 2 colors, just so that we can put the one color on and then put the next color on. And then go and melt them together, because if we put one color on and then he melts it together, then we put another color on and he melts that in, it could melt in kind of a weird blurred shape. So if we put them both on at the same time, then they melt at the same rate, and that makes it much more crisp and nicer.
And so now we laid the color on the center bit, and we just have to melt the color in so it becomes one smooth pattern. Because if there's any seams or anything where the color is, when we plunge it into the middle, it's going to catch bubbles there. So that'll be little imperfections in the design.
Then we'll melt them together so that they're smooth without a lot of edges, because if we have a lot of edges, we'll trap air, and we didn't want a ton of extra bubbles or special design of bubbles, so we wanted to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Then what we do is we extrude it out a bit lengthwise and give it a twist, a nice slow twist, and that gives it kind of that helix of color. In this you can see the spike of color, but it has this nice, about 2 revolutions worth of color, in 2 revolutions of twist in color. Then we put a bit of a wave into it, so it looks kind of more like a flame. They're dirt from gravity, so this puts a nice bend in it. Then we have a graphite mold that's made out of a big block of graphite. It's a 2-part mold, so it splits in half basically. I'll get a ladle of glass out of the furnace, a big ladle of glass, and we pour that into the mold so it's full. And then the guy who formed the spike with a twist in it plunges that into the mold. So we plunge it straight down into the mold. We let it cool off a little bit so that it firms up, because glass is kind of like taffy, after a few minutes. We wait a little bit longer and it seizes up a little bit more. It's still flexible but not solid.
Just doing this to cool the edges here, set it up a bit.
Then we pull it out of the mold and we flash it in the glory hole, and that's to even out the heat. But also the flame in the glory hole will polish the one end. So this end here gets its smooth surface from what we call flame polishing.
And so we have to let it completely set up before we put it away. Otherwise, if we put it away too hot, it's gonna deform when it's in the annealer. The internal heat in it will actually like deform the piece.
Yeah, the heat actually moves kind of slow, and the internal heat will come out to the external part of the piece, and then when it sits on the grating in the annealer, because the shelves are great, it can actually take on the shape of the grating if it was too, like if it becomes too hot. Now the annealer itself isn't that hot, even though it feels like it. When you stick your head in there, it feels like it. It's not hot enough to actually deform, but the interior of the piece could be 300, 400, 500 degrees warmer than the actual exterior, and then that soaks out to the outside.
Yeah, the annealers are at like 500 degrees, and these furnaces are at like 2,000.
Yeah. Then we wait for a while until it seizes up. As soon as it stops moving, then we'll break it off and we'll put it in the annealing oven.
Now we're just creating a stress point in the glass. Like this is a really cool part now, so if I hit the glass, all the vibrations are gonna stop at that one point.
Then it'll sit in the annealing oven for about 57 hours. And that cools down slowly, and what it does is it takes all the stress out of the glass. Because all the forming that we do causes inconsistent heating throughout the glass, right? And even though we're flashing it and doing all kinds of things to it to try and even out the heat, it'll still have inconsistent heat through it. So what we do is we put it in the annealing oven, and it bathes it in a 550 degrees Celsius for a good 25 hours or so. Well, everything in a glass shop is a team effort, right? So I came up with the design. You know, it's my design, but that doesn't mean that I'm the one who carries things out. I mean, there are a number of artists like that. They actually just design it, and somebody else actually makes it. In this case, I've got the skill set that allows me to help out, right? And then plus, I get to supervise. I get to look and see what's going on. Some other first-year students that are there are Paul Vandenbiggert. He's the one who's putting the twist in the glass. He's quite good at it, so we figured why reinvent the wheel for one of us to figure that out. And then there's Matt Crosby, and Matt's helping out with everything else, bringing bids, opening the door. You need to have a hand in the glass shop because there's so many things that are really hot that you just can't do it. You just can't hold a pipe in one hand and try and open the door with the other hand. Especially with this thing, it weighs too much. It's a good 5-10 pounds of glass on there. So it's important that I get Paul and Matt to help out.
Each one will be unique. It'll be at least slightly different. No matter how much we wanted them to be exactly the same, they'll always be a little bit different just because of how we did it.
The shape of this award, it takes on the shape which is actually an oak leaf. So if you look at it, it's oak leaf shaped, right? And that's of course Oakville's own built-in iconography. So what we did is we placed these spirals of color in the center to kind of symbolize an inner flame. So it's kind of like the inner fire that runs the town. So the volunteers have, are this energy that runs the town, and you don't get anything done without having a good core of volunteers willing to do the things that need to be done. So I thought it was important to have that in there, and it also kind of symbolizes the inner fire of the actual people who are volunteers, because they have to have a certain dedication that you don't see. So it's kind of a dual meaning in that regard. You've got the inner fire of the town and the inner fire in the people who are the inner fire of the town. The complexity of the piece actually requires that you have a few extra hands, especially when we've got a two-part mold. One guy plunges the piece into the mold, but he can't let go of the pipe to try and extract it. So it takes another two people to try and separate the mold off of it, because it can stick. Glass can get sticky at that temperature, and it can get stuck in the mold. And if we leave it in there too long, it's just going to crack. So we'll have a ruined piece at that point. So because graphite really sucks the heat out of the glass, right? It's like doing anything with it, touching metal to the glass, it'll suck the heat out of the glass. So it takes a couple of guys in there, sometimes prying, sometimes physically holding on to the mold with a pair of gloves on, and then Paul can pull it up out of there once it's out, once it's been freed. It's important to pull up vertically so that we don't snap off some of the vertical striations in the mold, like these bits in here. That's solid graphite in the mold, and if we twist it, we can snap them off, and then we've ruined the mold, and we don't want to do that, right? It takes a while to cut one of those things because it's 6 inches thick. So it takes a few hands to get things done. This is actually my first time in Oakville. It's a very nice town. Everybody's really nice here, and it's almost surprising, like how nice everyone is in Oakville, and also how dedicated volunteers are, and how important it is to actually give them some kind of award to recognize what they do. So it was great for me to sit down and go, hey, I get to make this thing.
Volunteers are basically selfless. It's selfless service. It's really giving to others. I know for sure that they're not in doing their volunteer work expecting to be recognized and to be thanked. But it really is, from my perspective, an enormous honor to be able to make this year the awards that will actually recognize them and thank them for the work that they do. Volunteers are the creatures that operate maybe between earth and sky and that keep a community together. The Community Spirit Award for this year is a functional box. That was the request from the committee. I had proposed something that would go on the wall, but it has actually the box itself has a lot of the elements that I had of my initial proposal. My initial proposal did include this waterfront line delineating the difference between the sky and the earth. So that has been retained in the box. The process of making the boxes has included working with 2 different clay bodies. One that's very groggy, a bit like having sand in it, so it's very textured. And the other one is a porcelain for the temperature that I'm firing to. So the interesting part about these 2 clay bodies is that they're really quite different. One is very smooth, and the other one is this, as I say, more textured, has more almost like sand in it. If you were to feel it with your fingers, you feel more of it's just different to tactile. But these 2 different clays dry differently, and they want to almost go in opposite directions. So it's kind of interesting to work with them in a way that puts them together to come to the awards, which are the boxes.
Vanessa has come a long way in terms of solving a lot of technical problems this year, and it's because she's really set for herself some technical challenges, working with different types of clays and trying to combine them together in a single piece, a single object. As a ceramic artist, that sort of sets you up for trouble. And Vanessa went in knowing that, and she's been strategic in finding ways to sort of respond to those challenges. And it's really boosted her technical skills for sure.
This is why my little note here on that, it's like, yes.
You're going to get different sorts of responses by working with a hollow, right, where the glaze is going to collect and flow.
Oh, then when it's going to
And that's
drip.
not really representational of the kinds of forms that you're making, where
right.
it's going to be, there are little grooves, small areas where it's going to be gathering together, but generally speaking.
Endorse. It's endorse, not approve. Okay.
And then we have the information item about the agenda, and we have to, the schedule, yeah.
Okay, members of the board, we are moving in open session, and I report that we in closed session for the purpose of addressing a matter related to personal matters about identified individuals including municipal local board employees, and is the board of section 391 of the municipal law. So, members of the board, we've got one matter that's out of that session, and that is the enforcement of motion for that purpose. I'm sorry? Oh, should I start again? Okay. Sorry to our friends on YouTube, I did not turn on my mic. I seem to be IT deficient today. I report that first of all, we're back in open session. I report that we met in closed session in accordance with section 239(1) of the Municipal Act for the purpose of dealing with personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. As I was saying, we have one matter that we have to address coming out of the in-camera session, and that is the endorsement of the candidate that has been proposed. I would look for a motion to do that, please. Somebody want to, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Bill. All in favor? All in favor? That is carried, and thank you so much for that presentation. We look forward to meeting the mystery candidate.
Yes.
Okay, so let's wrap this sucker up today. We only have one item left on the agenda today, and that is the 2023 meeting schedule. The recommendation is receipt. So those of you who are applying to return to the board are probably the ones that are going to be most interested in it. It was in your agenda package. Does anybody that is hoping to return have any burning issues with this? I hope not. I'm not curious about why the change. To be honest, it's your chair. Because it lines up with the police board. And so what was happening is I was literally I was chairing 2 meetings that took up the entire day. And as selfish as that sounds, it is not an easy task to chair meetings for literally 12 hours straight. Because it's, it's almost 9 o'clock. So if this was a police board day, I would have been in the chair literally 12 hours. So it's just my selfishness. Okay, members of the board, we need to receive that for, do we receive it or approve it?
And there's also an amendment.
Oh, yes, the amendment. Yes, we had an amendment related to the February meeting, so I need a motion to approve, motion to receive. We're still receiving the amendment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can receive the information item as amended.
Okay, thank you. And that's Andrew moving it, or do you have a question about the amendment? The amendment is that the 2023 meeting schedule be received, amending the February 16th, 2023 meeting to February 23rd. And that was related to a vacation issue, not of the chairs. Somebody else.
That would be mine.
It's Jessica.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I will be updating the meeting schedule and sending everybody an email with the new updated date.
Will you be sending that out by Outlook email invites as well?
I believe we send those internally. I don't think they go to citizen members.
Okay,
So they would just get like the PDF of the dates.
okay.
Yeah.
So you'll be sending them to Councillor Chisholm and I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those will go out before the end of this month.
Thank you very much. That's great. Motion to receive motion to receive as amended. Thank you, Andrew. Seconded by, you're going to seconded by Bill and moved by Bill. Seriously, Savannah, will you second for me? Thank you. Moved and seconded, all in favor? That is received. Okay, members of the board, we are on item number 9, that is new business. Does anybody have any new business to bring to the attention of the board today? I'm not seeing any. I would like to take a moment, and I'm sad that she's gone. I wanted to, I'll talk to her empty chair. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Councillor Janet Hazel-Thiel for her dedication to service on the Oakville Public Library Board for the last 4 years. She has been a fantastic contributor to this organization, And we know that she'll remain, connected to us through her council responsibilities, but you could also see that she was keeping an eye on us in the back of the room, so I'm sure that is going to continue as well. I know she's very passionate about library services, and I'm very grateful for her counsel and her hard work over the last 4 years. And on that note, I'd also like to welcome Councillor Ray Chisholm. Councillor Chisholm is my colleague that represents the town council from Ward 2. Ray has extensive experience in municipal world because not only is he currently a councillor for, I guess this is his 3rd term, I believe, he was also a long-standing municipal employee working in the department that actually where the library lives. So it's he's got a lot of experience to bring to the table, and I look forward to welcome him at the next meeting. I know that he'll be a terrific contributor, and you will all enjoy working with Ray. He's a great guy. Other new business today? Now, let me just confirm one more time, because I asked for clarification, so I want to make sure we're 100% that I'm 100% clear on this. Members of the board remain in their positions until there's a new appointment, so this is not anybody's last meeting today.
This is not anybody's last meeting. People are appointed, I believe the term was to November 14th, 2022, or until a successor is appointed. So everybody remains in their current positions until a successor is appointed.
Right, okay, so if you have applied for a new position, you'll hear about the outcome in February, I suspect. And if you are currently, if you're leaving, we hope that you'll stay with us for January, because we will need you for quorum. And I will try to find something nice to say about each one of you that are leaving by the next meeting. No, I'm just kidding. Appreciate your time and attention this evening. And with that, I will draw your attention to the fact that the next meeting is on Thursday, January 19th, 2023. Happy birthday to my son, Dylan. And I will look for motion to adjourn. You don't want to go? Oh, Stephen wants to go home. Seconded? Who wants to go home? Meredith wants to go home. All in favor of adjournment? That is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to the IT team. And thank you to all of you who are interested enough in your library system to pay attention to our fun little meetings here at Town Hall on behalf of the Oakville Public Library System. We do appreciate you tuning in. If you ever have any questions about library services in Oakville, feel free to contact us through our website. If you want to speak to your chair, you can always reach me at jeff.knoll@oakville.ca. So thank you for watching, and we hope that you'll tune in again in January. And we'll see all of you in January, hopefully, as well. So thank you, everybody. Good night.